Under the dappled glow of a street lamp in mid-century Philadelphia, a slender figure hurried along the sidewalk, balancing a head full of dreams and the weight of a complicated destiny. Her name at birth was Thomasina, but the world would come to know her as Tammi Terrell. That name would eventually adorn vinyl records spinning in living rooms across America, crackling to life with heartfelt love songs and vibrant harmonies that soared straight into the hearts of countless fans. Yet behind the glamour of stage lights and the smooth swirl of late-night radio rotation lay a life stained with trials and tribulations, an existence in which every joy seemed shadowed by a looming heartbreak. Tammi's journey was a tapestry of determination, vulnerability, and extraordinary talent, woven against the backdrop of a music industry that was both exhilarating and punishing, a place where personal battles were often fought in the wings while the show went on. Her father, Thomas Montgomery, owned a local barbershop and held political ambitions that fueled conversations about community, civil rights, and the future of their neighborhood. He'd hoped for a son, and so when Tammi was born in 1945, he named her Thomasina, an adjustment to the dream that never quite arrived in the way he imagined. Her mother, Jenny, was a former actress who harbored a flair for theatrics. She was always quick to encourage a confident posture or a dramatic flourish, believing her children should embrace the spotlight whenever it presented itself. The Montgomery household was thus lit by a spirit of showmanship, but also grounded in the practical realities of a father who saw the world through the lens of social change and local governance. Even as a child, Tammi felt the push and pull of that dual identity. The dreamer in her soared with music and performance, while the realist in her grappled with what it meant to be a young black girl in a rapidly shifting social landscape. Friends and family would often describe Tammi as bright-eyed, quick-witted, and always humming a tune. She had this uncanny way of turning everyday moments into miniature concerts, brushing her hair to a doo-wop rhythm, tapping out a beat on the kitchen counter, practicing her church solos in the living room until she caught her reflection in the window and performed a little curtsy as if the glass itself were an adoring audience. She was a natural entertainer from the start, yet there was also a quiet perseverance that underpinned everything she did. When she was around 11, a devastating incident shattered the relative innocence of her childhood. Tammi was raped by 3 boys, and while the immediate horror and pain of that event carved an unthinkable scar on her psyche, it also brought forth severe migraines that would dog her every step in the coming years. In hushed tones, her family later speculated that this early trauma might have predisposed her to the health crises she would eventually face in adulthood, especially the brain tumor that would claim her life so tragically young. It was as if every heartbreak lodged itself somewhere deep inside her, collecting and consolidating into an affliction that would not let her go. Yet she forged onward, perhaps propelled by the same grit that shimmered in her father's political pursuits and the performative spark that glowed in her mother's stories from the stage. Music gave Tammi an escape route, a place where the ephemeral joys of melody and harmony transcended whatever horrors the real world inflicted. She began singing in church, her voice ringing out on Sunday mornings, with a fervor that brought parishioners to tears, and in local talent shows that would test both her nerve and her blossoming stage presence. She won more often than not, leaving her competitors both awestruck and perhaps a little envious. A certain electricity seemed to flicker around her whenever she stood behind a microphone. It was in that swirl of local acclaim that Scepter/Wand Records scouted her. She was only 15, still sporting the youthful innocence of someone who believed wholeheartedly in the miracle of big breaks. When she signed her first recording contract under the stage name Tammy Montgomery, before the unstoppable Motown machine would rename her Tammi Terrell, she was just Tammy, a bright new spark in the labyrinth of the music industry. In 1961, she released her debut single, If You See Bill, a tender heartbreak tune that might have seemed modest on the surface, but hinted at the emotional nuance she could bring to even a simple love song. The single didn't set the charts ablaze. It didn't rocket to the top of any national rankings or spin incessantly on every radio station in the country, but it caught the ears of those who listened closely, earning her a modest foothold in an industry built on ephemeral hits and short attention spans. Around this time, she also recorded demo tracks for the Shirelles. Those early sessions were stepping stones, places where Tammy honed her vocal style, practiced controlling her vibrato, and learned the intricacies of studio recording. The critics might not have noticed her just yet, but people in the know understood that her voice had potential. Although these early releases and demos didn't chart significantly, they did something more important. They set the stage for the next move in her career, and that move would hurtle her into the orbit of one of the biggest stars of soul and R&B, James Brown. The year was 1962. James Brown, also known as the Godfather of Soul, had a revue that packed nightclubs and concert halls with raucous, electrifying performances. The James Brown Revue was infamous for demanding schedules, strict discipline, and the explosive presence of Brown himself, whose unstoppable energy fueled every single beat. Tammy was initially drawn to this world by a mixture of romance and ambition. Brown was older, successful, a magnet for aspiring artists seeking to learn from the best. Their relationship began as a whirlwind romance, but soon morphed into something complex and often disturbing. She joined his revue, seeing him back up and occasionally stepping into the spotlight with her own numbers. This new environment was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gave her a platform to travel, to be seen, and to hone her skills alongside a master of stagecraft. On the other hand, it also exposed her to Brown's controlling and, by many accounts, abusive nature. During this time, she recorded I Cried for Brown's Try Me label in 1963, and it inched onto the Billboard Hot 100 at number 99, her first official charting single. It was a baby step, but for a teenage girl trying to find her way in a cutthroat industry, it was a milestone worth celebrating. Yet behind the scenes, James Brown's temper and volatile behavior grew more apparent. According to some accounts, including testimony from those who worked closely with them, Brown could be controlling to the point of violence, and Tammy experienced physical abuse at his hands. One particular incident, described years later by Brown's former associate Bobby Bennett, involved Brown lashing out at her for failing to watch his entire performance, a shocking and heartbreaking episode that left her bloodied and traumatized. In 1963, she made the decision to leave him. She was only around 17 or 18 at the time, yet she'd already witnessed enough darkness to last a lifetime. This experience, painful as it was, seemed to galvanize her determination to keep moving forward. It was as if she understood that her voice was bigger than the bruises, and that eventually the music would carry her beyond these horrors. In the following years, Tammy pressed on, singing wherever she could, picking up small gigs, and letting her talent speak louder than her past. She began flirting with a new sense of style, a sharper stage presence, and, most importantly, an awareness that she needed to surround herself with people who recognized her worth without exploiting it. By 1965, she found herself at a pivotal crossroads. Berry Gordy, the legendary founder of Motown Records, saw something special in her, during a performance at Detroit's 20 Grand Club. It was her 20th birthday, April 29th, 1965, when she signed with Motown, effectively stepping into a new shimmering chapter of her life. Gordy was known for his knack for creating superstars. He'd shaped the careers of Smokey Robinson, Diana Ross and the Supremes, the Temptations, and many others who became not just recording artists, but cultural icons. In Gordy's eyes, Tammi embodied a certain magnetism that could tap into the growing soul and pop market. Motown was a world of polished hits, carefully choreographed routines, and top-tier songwriters, and it was about to become Tammi's home. With this signing came a new stage name, Tammi Terrell. The label wanted something with a bit of sex appeal, and so Tammi Montgomery was reimagined as Tammi Terrell, a moniker that felt slick, modern, and just right for the mid-1960s. That same year, she released I Can't Believe You Love Me, a single that finally nudged her a little further up the charts than her previous attempts, peaking at number 72 on the Billboard Hot 100. While this still wasn't a runaway triumph, it was a stepping stone, a sign that she was starting to find her footing in a label known for crafting hits that soared to the top. She followed it up with Come On and See Me in 1966, which climbed to number 80 on the charts. These were modest placements, but each single further solidified her position in Motown's stable of emerging talent. All the while, Tammi was wowing audiences with her effervescence on stage. She blended a youthful sweetness with a haunting emotional resonance whenever she sang, so that even a simple lyric about love or heartbreak was delivered with a sincerity that made listeners believe every syllable. Studio sessions revealed just how adaptable her voice could be, and producers began to realize that behind her poised exterior lay a resilience that had been tested by real hardships. By 1969, Motown assembled her only solo album, Irresistible, which combined her recorded tracks from 1965 to 1968. The album landed at number 39 on the R&B chart, receiving a warm reception from fans who had been following her journey. While it didn't become the blockbuster success Motown might have hoped for, it did highlight Tammi's capacity to interpret classic tunes like This Old Heart of Mine, and introduced her to fans who'd previously only heard her scattered singles. But it wasn't her solo career that would catapult her to widespread fame. It was her partnership with Marvin Gaye, one of Motown's shining stars. Berry Gordy, always the savvy matchmaker when it came to pairing voices, saw how Marvin's laid-back, velvety tenor could intertwine with Tammi's bright, invigorating tone. Their first duet, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, was released in 1967, and it was an instant smash, climbing to number 1, 19 on the Hot 100, and an impressive number, 3 on the R&B charts. Over the years, this track would achieve legendary status, even being inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. The synergy between Tammi and Marvin was palpable. You could sense the chemistry, the warmth, the playful banter, two voices dancing around each other, building and resolving tension in a way that felt as natural as breathing. The public fell in love with their dynamic, and critics began to herald them as one of Motown's most exciting duos. They followed Ain't No Mountain High Enough with Your Precious Love, Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing, and You're All I Need to Get By, charting a total of 7 top 40 hits together. These songs became romantic anthems, staples in the collections of couples looking to soundtrack their own love stories. Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing soared to number 1, 8 on the Hot 100, but crucially took the number 1 spot on the R&B chart. Fans couldn't get enough of that irresistible blend of sincerity and flirtatious charm that floated effortlessly across the grooves of these records. The duo's albums, United, You're All I Need, and Easy, each made a strong impression. United and You're All I Need showed the evolving chemistry of two artists who seemed to bring out the best in one another, while Easy arrived in 1969 amid rumors and swirling controversies. Valerie Simpson, who co-wrote many of these hits with Nicholas Ashford, later claimed that while Tammi did sing some tracks on Easy, others were overdubbed with Simpson's voice because Tammi's health was rapidly deteriorating. This rumor ignited debates among Motown fans and insiders alike, adding an air of mystery and speculation to Tammi's already dramatic story. While her professional life soared on the wings of these Marvin Gaye duets, her personal life continued its complicated dance with heartbreak and pain. After escaping the tempestuous relationship with James Brown, Tammi found herself in another tumultuous romance with David Ruffin, a leading voice of the Temptations. She was drawn in by his charisma and success, but it turned out he was already married with children, and, as it emerged later, he had another girlfriend on the side. Tammi discovered these betrayals too late, especially after accepting an onstage marriage proposal from him, only to realize she'd unwittingly become entangled in a web of deceit. Moreover, Ruffin's temper could flare violently, culminating in a shocking incident where he struck her with a motorcycle helmet. The heartbreak from this relationship was yet another blow in a series of disappointments that chipped away at her sense of safety. By 1967, she'd had enough and ended the relationship, but the emotional toll of these cycles of abuse added to the stress her body was already under from her migraines. Later that same year, at a concert at Hampton-Sydney College in Virginia, Tammi collapsed on stage into Marvin Gaye's arms while they were performing Your Precious Love. The audience might have thought at first that it was part of the act, but it very much wasn't. Her migraines had become excruciating, and doctors soon discovered a malignant brain tumor. She was only in her early 20s. It was as if every heartbreak, every moment of tension, had crystallized into this catastrophic medical diagnosis. She underwent multiple surgeries, 8 in total at Graduate Hospital in Philadelphia. Between operations, she bravely continued to record with Marvin, determined to keep her passion for music alive despite the bleak prognosis. The press, fans, and even some at Motown struggled to grasp the severity of her condition. She was slowly going blind, losing weight, and spending more time in a wheelchair. Yet she never lost the warmth in her voice or the softness in her smile when she talked to those she trusted. In late 1969, a frail Tammi surprised everyone by making what would become her final public appearance at the Apollo Theater. Marvin Gaye was on stage when she joined him, and together they performed You're All I Need to Get By. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, giving her a standing ovation that seemed to envelop her in love and admiration. It was a beautiful moment, one that defied the heartbreak that had followed her, an exclamation point on a career that was winding down far too soon. With each note, it felt as if she were summoning every ounce of strength she had left, channeling it into the music that had always been her saving grace. But Tammi's health continued to decline. After her 8th surgery on January 21, 1970, she slipped into a coma. On March 16, 1970, she passed away at just 24 years old. The official cause was complications related to her brain cancer. Her funeral took place at Jane's Methodist Church in Philadelphia, where Marvin Gaye, deeply shaken, delivered a eulogy that left few eyes dry. At the request of Tammi's mother, he was the only Motown figure allowed to attend, as the family had grown wary of the label's motives in those final months. The eulogy ended with the strains of You're All I Need to Get By, a symbolic reminder that Tammi's spirit and legacy lived on through the music she left behind. In the wake of her death, Marvin Gaye found himself struggling with profound grief, slipping into a depression that contributed to the introspective depth of his masterpiece, What's Going On, released the following year. The shimmering magic of their duets took on a more bittersweet hue, given the realization that the voice harmonizing with Marvin on those classic records was now silenced forever. Fans mourned her loss deeply, and critics lamented the fact that the full extent of her talent would remain forever unrealized, a life cut short before it could bloom into its fullest expression. Posthumous releases, like The Onion Song, found some success. It reached number 1, 9 in the UK, ensuring that Tammi's voice continued to echo across radio waves and living rooms. At the end of her life, Tammi Terrell had 11 charted singles, 7 of them in partnership with Marvin Gaye. Though she never secured a solo number 1 hit, her influence reached beyond mere chart positions. She sold over 3 million records and even snagged a Grammy nomination in 1968 for Best R&B Duo with Marvin Gaye for Ain't No Mountain High Enough. The recognition confirmed that her star was undeniably on the rise, and had fate allowed, she almost certainly would have achieved even greater heights. She left behind her parents, her sister Ludi, and a fiancé, Dr. Ernest Garrett. She had no children, but the imprint she made on popular music would serve as a form of spiritual legacy. Her mother's decision to bar most of Motown from her funeral spoke to the complexities of her final years, perhaps a protective measure or a reaction to the emotional and physical demands Motown placed on its artists, a system that sometimes valued hits over health. Yet whatever friction surrounded her final days, Tammi's family and close friends remained determined to preserve her memory as a shining light in the pantheon of soul.